solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Miss Berry, if you would please introduce yourself to the jurors and spell your last name for the record.
I'm Nickola Berry, B-A-R-R-Y.
And Miss Berry, where do you live?
16112 East Glasgow Drive, Waxahachie, Florida, 33470.
And is that in Palm Beach County, Florida?
Yes.
In relation to that home, who do you currently live with that home?
I am.
And is that him your boyfriend?
Yes.
How long have you been in a relationship with Mr. Nancy?
4 years, Lord, 4 years.
Now, prior to living at this last Cal Drive address, did you also live at another address in Wellington?
Yes.
I want to ask you, back in November of 2016, did someone else live with you in the home?
Yes.
And who was that?
Melanie Eam. With my son, James Berry.
And James Berry, how old was James in November of 2016?
He was 21.
And was Miss Melanie Eam his girlfriend at the time in November of 16?
No.
And prior to November 17th of 2016, had Mr. James Berry, your son, and Melanie Eam, were they boyfriend and girlfriend?
I'm sorry, repeat that.
And I stepped away from the microphone, I apologize. Was James Berry, your son, in a relationship with Melanie Eam? Were they boyfriend and girlfriend at some point in time prior to his death?
Yes.
When Miss Eam and your son were in the relationship, would she often stay at your home both during the day as well as night?
Yes.
Would she frequently sleep over?
Yes.
When she was at your home, did she have full access to the living area, the patio, the kitchen, that type of aspect?
Yes.
Did she even use your kitchen at times?
Yes.
Does that include baking or cooking for James?
Yes. She bathed and sometimes she cooked.
And when she was at your home, did you give her full access to your kitchen to use different dishes, pots, different utensils within the kitchen?
Yes.
How long, approximately, would you say a couple of years that James was in a relationship with Melanie? Off and on, but would you say for a couple of years?
Yes. Almost 2 years.
Now, Miss Eam, did you know in 2016 what kind of car she drove?
Yes.
And what kind of car would she drive?
A Toyota, a white Toyota Camry, I believe.
And was it a white older vehicle?
Yes, a 4-door sedan.
And I'm showing you states 99, 103, and 100. Was that what Miss Eam's vehicle looked like?
Yes.
And Miss Eam, do you see her in the courtroom?
Yes.
Could you please identify her by what she's wearing, where she's located?
She's sitting next to Mr. Berry. She's wearing a white shirt, a navy blue pants, skirt, and she's got black hair, long black hair. That's right.
That's nice. Thank you. Please let the record reflect the lyrics and identify the defendant. Now, in relation to, and we spoke about Miss Eam, did you also know one of James's friends, Jeff Jarbakowski? Were you also familiar with him?
Yes.
Would he oftentimes hang out with your son, James Berry?
Yes.
Would it be common for him to come to the house and hang out with James?
Yes.
Would he sometimes spend the night as well?
Yes.
In relation to your son James, at the time, in regards to when James was living there, was he working? Was he a student? What was he doing?
He was working at Pet Supermarket.
In addition to working, was he also a fan of video games?
Yes, he's a master gamer.
A master gamer. Would he play video games frequently on his computer?
Yes.
When he would have friends over, such as Jeff or Melanie, would he be playing video games either with them or with them watching? Was that something that commonly occurred at your home?
Yes.
Now, I want to ask you about November 16th, the evening before your son's death. That night, November 16th of 2016, did you have dinner with Guy at the home?
Yes.
Do you remember what you had, or was it just the two of you that you had dinner?
Yes.
What did you have?
A roast beef.
And with this roast, did Guy hand, was he the one who would cut the roast after you made it?
Yes.
At that point, is there anything unusual about that evening between you, Mr. Hand, anything unusual at that point in time?
Dinner time?
Yeah. Is it just like any other day?
Yes.
That same night, has Jeff come over to the home to hang out with James?
Yes, he came over earlier that day.
And are he and James playing video games in James's room?
Yes.
Miss Eam, when was the last time you had seen Miss Eam?
On the 15th.
So the 15th, the day before, that day, had you seen her at your home with James? Yes. Do you remember if she spent the night that night, the 15th into the 16th?
Yes.
But at the time that you were having dinner, is Miss Eam there with James?
No.
I want to ask you, that night, do you remember around what time you went to bed?
11.
And when you went to bed at 11, were you able to go to sleep and sleeping? Is there something that while you were sleeping woke you up or caused you to wake up?
Yes.
And before I get into that, when you went to bed, what were you wearing? If you remember.
Night clothes, t-shirt, and maybe a little skirt.
And what did Guy wear then?
He had on boxer shorts and no shirt.
In regards to when you go to bed, do the two of you go to bed together? Yes. Do you sleep in the same bedroom, same bed? Yes. Is your bedroom located across the hall, essentially, from your son James' burial set?
No, they're connected.
So, but is there a hallway also?
Yes.
In relation to that hallway, when you go to sleep, you said that something woke you up. What woke you up? What did you hear?
Jeff screaming, help, help, and call 911.
And when you hear this, are you still in bed? What do?
Immediately get up.
And do you see Guy in bed with you as well?
Immediately got up.
Is who's closer to the door? You?
Guy.
And what do you do once you two immediately get up? Where do you go?
Straight to James's room.
And when you go to James's room, is Guy in front of you or behind you? When you walk into that hallway, are you able to see anything? What do you see once you get to the hallway?
James had collapsed on the floor, and there was blood everywhere.
And at that point, when you see James collapsed on the floor, you said blood everywhere. Was it on James?
Yes.
Was it also on the floor or in the hall?
Everywhere. It was perfect.
When you come out of the room, can you see that Jeff is with James?
Yes.
Do you go into James's room or do you stay in your room? Where do you?
I ran for my phone to call 911.
And do you call 911?
Yes.
Immediately ask for help and assistance for your son?
Yes.
And I know that you said that you saw your son blood on him. Did you notice anything, any cuts on his body?
He had a shirt, a dark shirt on, so you couldn't really see that. Like there was blood everywhere, sort of basically on him.
Do you get close enough to James to provide him aid, or did someone else do that for you?
Guy and Jeff took over as far as getting him positioned right on the bed to start CPR.
And at that point, are you focusing on calling 911?
Yeah, I was with the operator and came back and brought our phone and put it on the bed on speaker.
And did you do that so that Jeff and James could hear, or Jeff and Guy could hear what the dispatcher was saying?
Correct. When
You are doing this, when James is on the bed, is James ever able to communicate to you?
No.
Do you continue to see him just bleeding?
Yes.
At some point, based on what you see, are you still calling 911?
Well, the operator is telling Guy to continue to pump his heart and do CPR.
And does it take a long time for police or violence to arrive?
Yes.
Is there a point where police come inside the home and take over with James?
Yes.
And at that point, when you see this, was James conscious when they came in?
No, I saw him go unconscious. But Guy still felt a pulse. I didn't think he was going to die.
Now, at the point that law enforcement come inside, do they take over and start assisting your son, James?
Yes.
Are you asked to leave the residence?
Yes.
Do you go outside of your home?
Yes.
Do you, that point when you go outside, do you remain outside of your home?
Yes.
And does Jeff Jarzakowski, does he also stay, when the police ask him to go out, does he stay outside in the yard?
Yes.
Does Mr. Hand also stay on scene in that yard or in the road?
Yes.
That night, as all this is happening and Jeff and Guy are providing aid to your son, do you see Melanie Eam anywhere that night?
No.
When you're in the room, at any time, do you see a knife?
Yes.
When did you see it and what did you see?
We first walked into the room.
And what did you see?
It was on the floor.
How did the knife look?
It was full of blood.
And at that point, are you still in the pajamas you spoke of?
Yes.
Do you have any shoes on?
No.
At some point in time, do you see Guy, do you see anything happen to the knife?
Yes.
What do you see?
He picked it up.
And when you say who picked it
I
up?
picked it up and put it at the end of the kitchen counter and left it there because he thought being barefooted.
Objection, that's what I didn't recall.
Without going into what he said or what you thought, but did you see him do that?
Yes.
At that point, then, do you go outside and stay outside until police continue to arrive and additional detectives arrive at your home?
Yes.
When detectives arrive at your home, do you provide them with a statement as to what you know?
Yes.
Do you stay outside for hours while they search your home?
Yes.
Do you, that night, give them permission to search the home if they, to have access to your home and search your home?
No, I had to get a search warrant from the judge.
Did you, in regards to that, is that something the detective had explained to you?
Correct.
Had you offered for them to just go inside?
No.
In regards to that, did you tell the police that they couldn't go inside? Right.
No, detective, no.
Okay. You never told them that they couldn't go inside? I'm sorry, my question is that, I'll rephrase it. At any point that night, did you tell the police that they couldn't go inside your home? Or
Couldn't?
yes, did you ever say that to them? Or did you tell them, go ahead, go in my home?
No, I didn't tell them to go in my home.
Did the detective explain to you when you were waiting outside that he had to get a search warrant?
Yes, because I did ask him why did they have to get a search warrant.
And without going into what he said, did you continue while they did the search warrant? Did you stay outside while they conducted the search warrant, while they photographed and collected any evidence? Did you stay outside?
Yes.
That night, did one of your neighbors at Cynthia Steinhaus, did she come over to you while you were outside?
Yes, as soon as she heard the sirens, she came outside.
Did she provide some sort, was the weather cold that night?
Yes.
Did she provide you some sort of material since you were outside in your pajamas?
Yes.
What do you remember, what type of stuff she brought over?
Sweatshirts and a robe, clothing, and chairs.
And at that point in
time, when law enforcement was there,
did they ask you where your phone was in the house?
No.
Did they ever ask you in relation to a pink phone on the patio if that was your phone?
Yes.
Here, I'm going to approach.
Yes.
I'm approaching you with 90, 89, and 95. First, the photographs in 89 and 90. The phone that we see in those pictures. First, is that your patio that we see?
Yes.
And the phone that's on the patio table, is that your phone?
No.
Does that belong to your son, James?
No.
And the same in regards to State Exhibit 95. Was that your phone? Did that belong to either Guy or James?
No.
In regards to the night that we described, I'm showing you State's photo 68. Is that the night that you saw on the ground?
Yes.
And is that the counter that you described where you saw Ms. Hernandez place the night?
Yes.
In relation to that night that you were waiting outside, did Miss Melanie Eam, did she ever come on scene to your address at Glasgow Drive after your son, after you were asked out of home?
Yes.
And did Miss Melanie Eam, did you ever see her come back while you were waiting outside of the police?
We were watching TV.
Yes.
No, not me.
And are you talking about earlier that night? The night before you're having dinner, or you're talking about?
Repeat. Same question. Sorry.
When you are outside after your son has been stabbed and injured and you're waiting outside with police, do you ever see Miss Melanie Eam come to the scene at your house in Loxahatchee once the police are already there? And when you say about the car, was that prior to you going to sleep?
Yes.
In regards to the relationship with your boyfriend, Mr. Guyhan, and your son, James Berry, was there any conflict ever between the two of them?
No.
Did they ever get into fights or disagreements?
No.
Did they have a very good relationship?
Yeah.
Has there been questions?
Cross-examination. Thank you, Your Honor. You described seeing the knife on the bedroom floor, correct?
Yes.
Was it covered in blood?
Yes.
Was it covered in blood totally, the handle?
Yes.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
Was it covered in blood totally, the blade?
Yes.
Was the handle so covered in blood that you could barely tell it was a white handle, it looked like a red
There
handle?
was a lot of blood.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been admitted to evidence at State's Exhibit 68. Is that the knife?
Yes.
Was it a lot bloodier when you saw it in the bedroom floor?
No.
Does it appear?
There was blood everywhere.
I understand. Does it appear to be cleaner in this photo than when you last saw it?
No.
Was this knife washed? Let me finish. Was this knife washed in the sink, as best as you can tell, before it was placed on the counter?
No.
Thank you.
Redirect.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I'm approaching Unit 68 sometimes with the illumination. Can't see as clearly. In this photograph, the state's photograph 68, is there blood all over the knife?
Yes.
And is that the same condition that you saw on the floor?
Yes.
And when you were leaving, did you see Guy just drop it on the counter and continue out the door?
Yes.
No further questions.
You may step down, ma'am. Thank you. Stay ready to call second.
Yes, at this time, the state calls Detective Sean Oliver.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Good afternoon, Detective Oliver. If you would please introduce yourself to the jurors and spell your last name correct.
My name's Sean Oliver, last name is O-L-I-V-E-R.
And Detective Oliver, how are you currently employed?
I'm employed with Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office in the homicide unit.
How long have you been with the Sheriff's Office in total?
It'll be 17 years in November.
Prior to the Sheriff's Office, do you have any additional law enforcement experience?
Yes, I was with United States Border Patrol for just over 2 years.
And within the Sheriff's Office, I know you said you're currently a detective. What kind of assignments have you had within the Sheriff's Office prior to being with the Detective Bureau?
Started on the road patrol as a 911 responder, and then I was a corporal training new officer deputies, and then that's when after 3.5 years, I went upstairs to the deeper.
Now, when you're assigned to the Detective Bureau, are you assigned to a particular unit within the Detective Bureau?
So the Violent Crimes Division is separated in several units, and I was assigned specifically to the homicide unit.
And how long have you specifically been assigned to the homicide unit?
It'll be 15 years in December.
In relation to your training as a law enforcement officer, prior to even being a road patrol officer with the Sheriff's Office, did you undergo police academy and get formalized training there as well, continue at the Sheriff's Office?
Yes.
Within the Sheriff's Office, because you are in the special unit of the Detective Bureau, have you continued ongoing training as to certain aspects related to investigating?
It's on a yearly basis.
And have the trainings that you've gone through, in addition to yearly trainings, are there elective trainings that you've done through the course of your career?
Yes.
Do these touch on different areas of your job, such as searches, statements, case law? Is that something that's all covered in your training?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, briefly, in regards to the homicide unit, how does it work within the sheriff's office? Is there a type of partner or squads? How is it set up in the sheriff's office?
In our homicide unit, we have 5 separate squads, 5 detectives. I'm part of one of those squads. And each squad is led by 1 sergeant.
And in regards to these squads, of the 5 different detectives that are assigned, is it a rotational basis where on one case you'll be the lead detective, on other cases you'll be an assist?
Yes.
When cases arise, is it common that the lead detective will seek the assistance of multiple assisting detectives in the course of his investigation?
Yes.
In addition to just the sheriff's office and a law enforcement officer, is it typical that should it be necessary that you also seek the assistance of other agencies, either in the county or throughout the country?
If the case depends, yes.
I want to talk to you about your initial contact in relation. Did you yourself, were you called to respond to 16112 East Glasgow Drive in Loxahatchee?
Yes.
Were you first called to the scene based on the fact that it was going to be a homicide investigation? Is that right?
Yes.
When the initial 911 call comes out, is that something you respond to, or how does the process where you and the other detectives become involved? How does that work?
There's definitely a delay. The 911, the deputies respond to the 911, and then calls are made once it's determined if violent crimes is needed. They contact sergeants who then call me.
So if the 911 call alludes to or references a violent crime, is that then confirmed by the initial officers that get there, and then are you and your other detectives call?
Yes.
When you first arrived at East Glasgow Drive, do you remember being notified around 1:15 and then arriving, I believe, about half an hour later, 1:45?
Yes.
When you arrive on scene, are there already law enforcement personnel there?
Yes. Several uniformed deputies, marked patrol vehicles, and a crime scene had already been initiated.
And what do you mean by a crime scene have been initiated?
Okay, so we seclude the crime scene by using barrier tape, either yellow and black or red and black. At the time, it was yellow and black.
In relation, when you get to that address, are there witnesses or civilians outside that are also with law enforcement officers?
Yes, sir.
And at that point, in relation to do you first make contact with them, or do you go on scene? What do you do?
Generally, as most investigations, when I arrive, I first meet with the first responding deputies. Those are the ones that have most of the information. And then I go from there to make my decisions on who I want to speak to next.
And at the time when you spoke to them, do you just get a briefing about what they know as to what they've learned so far?
Yes.
Once you get that briefing from the initial officers, do you yourself go inside at that point, or do you speak with witnesses?
No, I didn't go inside for quite a while. We got a search warrant.
And that is in relation to your investigation. At the time that you make contact with the home, do you determine at that point in time a decision of whether a search warrant should be sought before you go on home?
That was done after interviewing the witnesses that were on scene.
And in regards to the witnesses that were on scene, did you make contact with Nickola Berry, the 911 caller, and the decedent's mother?
Yes, I did.
Did she provide you with a statement? Did she agree to talk to you?
She did.
And did she tell you what she knew about the incident?
Yes.
Did you also speak with an individual, Guy Hand?
Yes, I did.
In relation to these statements and these interviews, are they all done separately from each other?
Yes.
And how do you facilitate that while you're outside of the house? How do you actually record these statements?
Using a digital recorder, generally just segregate the witnesses, keep them segregated until all the interviews are completed.
And in some cases, since you're on scene, are you able to put some of the people in a police car so that you don't get as much outside noise?
Yes.
Now, in regards to Mr. Hand, was he cooperative with you?
Yes, he was.
Did he agree to provide you with a statement?
He sure did.
And in addition to that, did you ask him, did he agree to be photographed?
Yes.
In addition to the statement and the photographs, did he also agree to provide a DNA sample?
Yes.
And is that something that's done by crime scene investigators that are present?
Yes.
And at that point, are those things that Mr. Hand, at that point, providing a statement, providing the DNA or the photographs, is that something he's legally required to do, or did he agree?
Objection calls for legal conclusion.
Overruled. No, he's not required by law to do it. He just cooperated.
In addition to that, did you also speak with a Jeff Jarzabowski, determined to be a close friend of the decedent James Berry? Did you also do that?
Yes, I spoke to Jeff because he was actually there when it happened.
And was he, again, cooperative with you?
Yes,
Did he provide a statement to you?
he did.
And once again, was that separate from the other two individuals?
Yes,
Were all of the statements done separately?
they were.
In addition to that, did Jeff Jarzabowski also agree to be photographed?
Yes.
At some point during the course of your conversation during there, did you learn of at some point during your investigation, did you learn of another person who may have had access to the home at some point in time?
Yes.
And was that determined to be Ms. Melanie Eam?
Yes, it was.
Because of that, what did you do as a law enforcement officer?
Because based on the interviews with the three witnesses, it was believed that Melanie Eam had standing, like legal right to that home because she stayed there whenever she wanted to, in a sense. And because of that, it was determined that a search warrant would be best if we were going to gather any evidence.
So even before you collect any evidence, you make that call as a law enforcement?
Yes.
Do you actually obtain a search warrant, and is a search warrant executed on Ms. Berry's home?
It is.
In relation to the search warrant, when that is done, you seek the assistance of crime scene investigators with the Palm County Sheriff's Office?
Yes.
Do they take multiple photographs for you, collect evidence, that, all of those things?
Yes.
In regards to the scene itself, did you go into the home and make observations of the scene as well?
I did.
In relation to the victim, was the victim still on scene when you went in?
Yeah, James was still on scene. He was in his bed.
And what was the condition of James when he was on it?
Unfortunately, he was dead and he had a physical injury that was visible to his chest area. When the medical examiner actually arrived on scene for the preliminary examination was done on scene, and I could see that injury.
And you speak of when the medical examiner arrived, working as a homicide detective. Is the medical examiner or the medical examiner investigators called to a scene to examine a body before you or other crime scene investigators or other individuals from the sheriff's office have contact with the body? Or before you fully handle the body?
The latter part of the question, that is true. We will contact them after we're done with the search of the residence, after we document it, and then we contact the medical examiner investigator who will arrive on scene, and then that is when we will actually take a closer look at the decedent.
And when you, were you present when the medical examiner investigator took a closer look at the body?
No, I was.
And could you see stab wounds on Mr. James Berry's body?
Objection, lead in.
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
Did you see any injuries on Mr. James Berry?
Yes, I did.
What did you see?
I saw a wound to the chest that was about 3 to 5 inches in length. It was consistent with the sharp instrument. I also saw lacerations on the right and left hand. They're inconsistent with being cut by a sharp instrument. And then the one other thing I noted was on the jean pants, front to leg, there was a slice in the jeans, front to bottom, top to bottom.
And based on your training experience, was that also consistent with a sharp object or not?
Yes.
In addition to the victim himself, did you notice any blood within the residence?
Yes. Basically, it all started, it appeared based on the amount of blood in the kitchen area, it led down the hallway, and to where James was found in the bedroom. There was a lot of blood.
And so the areas you described, the kitchen, the hallway, and James' bedroom, was there blood in each one of those rooms?
Yes.
In addition, was there, when you saw him, was there still blood on James?
Yes, there was.
In the course of the search of the home, did you locate any particular items of evidence?
Yes, a knife that had blood on it, a white-handled butcher knife that was on the kitchen counter that had been disclosed to us in place there. And then the only other thing taken for evidence was a cell phone, which was major, other than swabs of the blood evidence.
And in relation to the white knife, is that what we see in State 68 that you're referring to?
Yes.
And you said a cell phone. Where was the cell phone located?
On the back patio?
And I'm showing you States 90 and States 89. Is that the cell phone that was located and then collected on?
Yes.
In relation to the cell phone, did you as an investigator, when speaking, once you located the cell phone, did you confirm with the witnesses that were on scene that the phone did not belong to any of them?
Yes, it did.
And in fact, did you, your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Approaching you with what has already been admitted as 95, did you actually collect the cell phone and place the cell phone into evidence?
Yes, that's my handwriting on the evidence.
As well as your name and your badge number?
Yes.
And in fact, is this the same between cell phone and cell phone? In addition to the search of the home, that night, did you also make contact with a couple others? Did you make contact with additional civilians that had come to the scene?
Yes. Well, actually, they had come to the scene. Detectives were assisting, as we've explained earlier, detectives assisted in this investigation. One of them did make contact with.
And did you learn, Ms. Shoup, was that one of the individuals that had been on scene that you later made contact with off scene?
Yes.
And, and I'll go to that in a moment, but in addition to Ms. Shoup, did Mr. Jim Barry, the victim's father, also arrive on scene?
Yes, he arrived on scene and I actually interviewed.
And then you spoke of Ms. Shoup, after the residence and the evidence that we discussed, did you try to make contact with Ms. Melanie Eam?
I did. I traveled to her last known whereabouts, which was her parents' home, which is like a 5-minute drive from the victim's residence.
And you said about a 5-minute drive?
Right.
Is that also located in, what city is it located in?
I believe Boston, actually.
When you, were you able to make contact with Ms. Eam's parents?
Yes, I did.
Is that a Mr. Coy Eam and a Ms. Shoup?
Yes.
At that time, was Ms. Melanie Eam at that residence?
No.
Did you get a statement from the parents?
They invited me to their home and I sat with them for a while and talked.
And when you spoke with them, did they express concern for their daughter?
Yes.
Did they provide you information as to relatives in Maryland?
They said they believe the daughter might have.
Objections to what they said.
That's fine.
In relation to your conversation with them, did you learn of information that you then carried on and continued investigating?
Yes.
The very next day, did you also go to, or I guess the same day, just later in the day, around 10 o'clock that morning, saying November 17th, did you attend the autopsy at the Palm-Shine Medical Center?
Yes, I did.
At that point, were you able to make any observations or notations of Mr. James Barry's injuries?
Yeah, they were the same injuries I had noted earlier.
The defensive wounds that you spoke of and the chest injury?
Yes.
And you spoke of the clothing. Was that something you were also able to see during the course of the autopsy?
The clothing had been removed, and yes, I did see.
In relation to the phone that you talked about in States 95 that you said you collected, did you also obtain a search warrant of that phone and use the assistance of the Palm Beach County forensics, computer forensics, to do a search of that phone?
I did.
When computer crimes, when the detective assisted with that, do they provide you information on a disk or in reports of the contents of their extraction?
In this particular case, I was provided a CD, which was basically an extrapolation of file of the phone itself.
In addition to that extraction, after was it Detective Cunningham who assisted you?
It was.
After he assisted you, did you yourself take a look at the phone beyond just the extraction?
I did.
And were you able to notice anything or observe anything?
Yeah, I manually went through the phone, because sometimes the downloads don't really show you what I want to see, so I manually went through the phone, and I saw some text messages other than the normal text that were through an application.
And in regards to this application, were you able to open that application and view messages that appeared similar to text messages?
Yes, it did.
In reviewing those, did you find conversation messages from two individuals that appeared relevant to your investigation?
Yes, ma'am.
As to the initial extraction that was done by Detective Cunningham, had you learned and confirmed that this phone belonged to Ms. Melanie?
Yes, for the extraction, it indicates the phone number, and the phone number that was associated with that phone was the same phone number that was provided to me by her parents.
And in regards to, in regards to these communications, did you determine communications with usernames, Vernon, Hell, and Hellraiser?
Yes, ma'am.
And when you went through the content of those messages, was it clear that we were able to determine one of the individuals being James Berry and one Ms. Eam?
Objection, Your Honor, I do not stand.
Approach this man.
Detective Oliver, if you could come down for one moment.
Are you moving those in now?
Well, this is, yes, and I was going to have a comment demonstrate on the phone right now. There's a screenshot of it.
Okay, you still haven't explained how they were taken off. Do that first, and then
In regards to the phone, were you able to open this application and see usernames, both Vernon Howell as well as Hellraiser?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you able to open that up and read the communication between Hellraiser and Vernon Howell?
Yes, I did.
And in regards to this communication, were you able to see a date of November 16th of 2016?
Yes.
In addition to that, did you observe a conversation between two individuals that's referenced in different colors throughout on the phone?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you also document this through a video and now that we see in screenshots, this same conversation that we see?
Yes, ma'am.
In relation to this conversation that you observed, did you also see one of the parties make reference to referring to the other party as Melanie?
I did.
At this time, state would move into evidence, states 128 to 137.
over previously stated objection. All right, so 128 through 137 will be noticed for the previously stated objection.
Now, in relation to this 128 to 137 and what we see on the phone, are these just, go through it, are these accurate screen grabs of what we see here?
It definitely looked like screen, as you described, screen grabs from the video I took at the point.
And in the same regard, the two different individuals, one we see in blue and one we see in goldish color?
Yes.
And so it's clear, if you can see from up there, it's not okay. This same, when we spoke of the burn in hell and the Hellraiser communication, is this what you noticed and observed on the phone?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, if you could just step on.
Subject.
The text messages that begin on, or I'll call them the messages from November, you can search this up, from November 16th, 2016, is this the conversation that you observed between one party and the other?
Yes.
And just so that, if Your Honor, the officer could publish what is in, at least the beginning, so we can see that it's in the screenshots. What was the first message that?
Are you publishing what's in 128 through 137?
Yes, I just want to say for the.
All right, so make sure you're publishing what's in evidence.
Yes, at this time, state would publish both 128 through 137 as well as what is visible on stage 95.
Okay.
And in regards to the November 16th, 2016, does it begin with after two symbols, does it begin with, oh, you forgot about me?
Yes. And that's when I started viewing and reading it.
And the viewing and reading of it that we see here on the phone, is that consistent with what we see in these snapshots?
Yes, they are. Because the snapshots can't include exactly what's on the screen. I thought there's two different.
And so as you continue both with 128 to 129, in regards to those messages, to continue on to 130.
Is there evidence?
Yes.
Yes.
And continuing just to make sure that they're all accurate. In regards to 131 is what we now see beginning. I thought you were happy. Continuing on.
Yes.
And again, continuing on in regards to states 132. I tried to put one little thing in that said that is on this, same on the message on the phone.
Yes, ma'am.
Same with the, and I'm sorry. And again, the next page with, but this is something. Continuing on. And that's 135. There's just two more. And then they're doing it through a chat. I'll talk to you in real life. That's what's on 136.
Yes.
And continuing on 137, is that just documenting the time in which you did it on the phone? The phone that we see on on the actual video that you did, the time notation of that when you're conducting the search.
It's from the video I took from my cell phone.
But that, just so that it's clear, the 908 isn't on the actual recording. This would be from the video in which you have the phone active.
Yes.
Thank you. Now, on that same day, later in the afternoon, around 5:30, were you contacted by Mr. Moncouc in Maryland?
On the same day, November 17th, I actually cold called a number before I ever received a call from home.
At some point in time, did you make contact with Mr. Uka, an individual in Maryland?
Yes, I did.
From that individual, did you obtain an address in Maryland that you used for part of your investigation?
Yes.
Did you ask for the assistance of officers in Montgomery County, the Silver Springs area, to assist in responding to that location to see if they could make contact with a Miss Melanie Eam?
I actually initiated their assistance in order to see if they could locate the vehicle in question.
And in regards to once you asked for the assistance of the vehicle, were they able to assist you in that manner?
Yes, they located the vehicle.
Once they located the vehicle, did you also ask for their assistance in determining if they were able to find the whereabouts of Miss Melanie Eam?
I'd asked them if they came in contact with them because I was hoping that Ms. Eam was up there, and they had told me that when they were
Objection. There's
Sustained.
Without getting into what they said, but did you ask for their assistance in that manner?
yes,
First, in regards to the vehicle, did you ask for that vehicle to be seized and collected so that you could obtain?
objection, lead it.
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
In regards to the vehicle, what did you ask them to do?
to seize it and impound it
Why?
because it was for investigative purposes, knowing what I knew at that point in the case.
What were you going to do with the vehicle once it was impounded?
Get a search warrant, and search it for any evidence related to the investigation.
Did you also ask officers to see if they could make contact with Miss Melanie?
Yes,
Why?
just to make sure that where she was, so because I planned on, because based on what Mr. Holmes told me, she was in Maryland, I felt it was important that I make every effort to contact Ms. Eam to get a statement from her.
When you asked for the assistance in regards to making contact with Ms. Eam, did you intend on applying to see Ms. Eam?
Once I was notified that she was there, I started with my chain of command, and it was already in the works that I was going to go up there and try to make contact with Ms. Eam.
Did you ever, prior to making contact with Ms. Eam, did you ever instruct or ask any of the officers to detain Ms. Eam for you?
Not at all. Yeah, actually, I instructed them not to interview or detain her in any way.
Did you instruct them in any way to arrest her?
No, of course not.
In addition to the initial officers that made contact with the vehicle, and did you ask for the assistance of a surveillance team?
I did, a surveillance team being like an undercover unit, just to monitor, to see if she leaves the house.
And why was that?
Because if she did leave the house and went somewhere else, I need to know where I'm going to find her since I was traveling a distance.
Did at any point when you spoke in regards to the plainclothes unit, did you ask them to detain her or arrest her if she left the residence?
No, I didn't.
Were you yourself able to go to Maryland?
Yes, I flew up on the 18th.
And the 18th still of November?
Yes, 2016.
And on November 18th, were you able to make contact with Ms. Eam?
Yes, I did.
When you did that, did you do it at a residence in Montgomery County?
Yes.
When you went there, did you, was it a 11922 Andrew Court in Silver Spring?
Yes.
When you went there, did you have the assistance of anyone from Montgomery County Police?
Because I traveled up there by myself, I was paired up with one of their detectives, Detective Karen.
And do you go to the residence, once you arrive at the residence, is the plainclothes unit still there?
I met with the plainclothes unit just down the street from the residence where Ian was believed to be inside of. Once he confirmed that he hadn't seen her leave, we relieved him and he left along with anyone else that might have been in the area. And the only ones that were still on scene were myself and Detective Karen.
So at the point when you arrived, did you have any intention of arresting or detaining Ms. Eam that night?
No.
Did you, did you make contact with Ms. Eam?
Yes.
How did you do that?
Knocked on the door of the residence, the address that had been provided to us. And her cousin, Mr. Uncle, opened the door and she was standing behind him and they allowed us to enter the house.
And when you do this, do you introduce yourself and explain who you are?
Yes, said who I was and where I was from.
In addition to what you described, do you also have any type of recording equipment that you utilize in order to memorialize your conversation with Ms. Eam?
At the time I was using my iPhone, I put it on recording mode.
Did Detective Karen also have a recording device with him as a backup also utilized?
Yes, she had an iPad.
Did both of you use your either the iPhone and the iPad to memorialize this contact with Ms. Eam?
They were both used simultaneously.
Initially, what was your intention in regards to Ms. Eam when you made contact with her? When you made contact with her, what's your initial intent or plan?
My intent is to make observations if I have to see her, and then to question her and get her side of possibly her involvement in what happened to James.
Initially, did you plan on conducting the statement at the residence or somewhere else?
Initially, proposed to Miss Eam as soon as we got in the house, I was planning on maybe bringing her back to the station in a more conducive environment for an interview.
And what's more conducive about the police department?
Having it on videotape as opposed to just audio.
In addition, are there, rather than an iPhone or an iPad, are there better equipment set up in police departments usually to memorialize statements?
Yes, ma'am.
During your contact with Ms. Eam, did she indicate to you, or sorry, I'll rephrase, when you asked her to go to the police station to see if she'll give an interview there, are you planning on detaining her or arresting her?
Neither.
When do you propose going to the station to Ms. Eam?
Yes, I did.
Is Ms. Eam willing to go to the police station?
She didn't seem like that's what she wanted to do.
So did you, at that point when she said she didn't seem like she wanted to, did you force her to go to the police station?
No.
Did you arrest her or detain her?
No.
What did you do?
I told her first off that she wasn't under arrest and just explained why I was there.
And in regards to this residence, did the family members that you spoke of, Ms. Searle, did he remain at the residence?
He and his significant other, or his sister, I'm not sure what the relationship was, but they both remained in the same room as myself and Detective Karen and Miss Eam.
Did you ever ask them to step out of the residence or demand that they leave?
No, I didn't.
During this contact with Ms. Eam, was she in police custody?
No, she was never in custody when I was speaking with her.
And did you have any intention of arresting her that night?
No.
Did you read Ms. Eam her Miranda rights?
No, ma'am.
And why?
I didn't believe she was entitled to Miranda at that time. It was non-custodial.
So in non-custodial, because she wasn't in custody, you did not read her Miranda?
Correct.
Did you provide Ms. Eam with an attorney?
No, I didn't.
What is the same reasoning that you spoke of in regards to Miranda?
Yes, at that time, I didn't believe she was entitled to an attorney.
And was that the same in regards to it not being a custodial interview?
Yes, ma'am.
In relation to your contact with Ms. Eam, you asked her about the circumstances of how James died.
Yes.
Do you ask her to explain any reason or anything that she may know?
I did.
Does this interview take place within her family member's home?
Yes, it does.
Is there a point where does the interview begin initially within the doorway of the home and continue within the residence?
Yes, it's right by the front door for the first 3 to 5 minutes, and then we move to a table that's in an open space within probably only feet of the front door.
And in this interview, did Ms. Eam admit to stabbing James Barrett?
Yes, she did.
Did she ever indicate to you that anyone else stabbed James Barrett?
No, she did not.
Did she ever tell you that Guy Hand stabbed James Barrett?
No.
Was the entire part of your conversation with her memorialized and recorded?
Yes, sir.
In addition to that, did you, when you finished the interview, did you arrest her?
No.
Did you let her stay at her residence?
Yes, it did.
Did you then go back to the police station in Montgomery County and deal with the vehicle that was there?
Yeah, the next day, well, actually later on in that same day, we did that street search on.
And in that same next morning, I know you said that same day, and was this conversation in the early morning hours?
Yes, when I made contact with Ms. Eam, yes.
Was that right when you got there?
Within probably 40 minutes of my arrival at the airport.
Then that same very day, going into the daytime hours, did you return to the home and arrest Melanie Eam?
No, I didn't.
Did you participate in the execution of a search warrant of her vehicle with Detective Flynn from Montgomery County as well as crime scene investigator Perkins?
Yes.
And have you had the opportunity to review the statement with Ms. Eam that was recorded with you and Detective Preston?
Yes, I know.
And is it a fair depiction of your conversation with Ms. Eam?
Yeah, everything that was said in the scene is on the report.
This time, state remove the evidence, states 138.
Over previously stated objection and motion.
138 will be admitted over previously stated.
Your Honor, your vote.
Yes. Ready to go? Are you ready to publish?
Yes, we are.
Your Honor, I place a copy of the statement on Your Honor's bench, as well as place one for identification.
Do they have the transcripts already?
They do.
All right. I will give all three instructions as soon as they come back in. So let's go ahead and remove your name.
Jury Edward.
All right, counsel, you may be seated. Ms. Scott, my understanding you're about to publish 139, which is recorded statement.
138, which is your sort
Oh, I'm sorry. 139, I'm sorry, 138, 139 is the transcript, 138. I have a few instructions I have to give to you, members of the jury, before we get started. You're about to listen to a recorded interview that contains opinions and statements by a law enforcement officer to the defendant. The opinions and statements are pertinent only to explain the reactions and responses they elicit. You are not to consider these opinions and statements by the police officer as true, but only to establish the context of the defendant's reactions and responses. The court also instructs you that the recording has been edited to eliminate irrelevant portions that would not aid in your understanding of the case. The fact that the recording has been edited should not concern you in any way. It must not impact the way you consider this evidence. You've also been provided and furnished with a transcript of the recorded conversation. The recording is the evidence. The transcripts provided to you are only a guide to help you follow as you listen to the recording. The transcripts are not evidence of what was actually said or who said it. If you notice any difference between what you hear on the recordings and when you read in the transcripts, you must rely upon what you hear and not upon what you read. Ready to publish?
Yes, sir.
Lights just went off upstairs. Hello? Hi. I'm not worried about the dog. It doesn't sound like it ever hurt me. How you doing? I'm Detective Oliver. I'm here from Ford. What's your name? Oh, you and I spoke on the floor. How are you? On the phone. Can you come in? Thank you. How are you? How are you? Word about you. I spoke to your parents yesterday. I'm sure you're still doing some good, right? Are you okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. I'm pretty impressed you made the travel up here and you found it. I understand you probably have a weight on your shoulders you'd like to get off. This is my promise to you. You come in and do this statement, and when you're not coming, I'm going to work. I'm not arresting. I'm not here to arrest you. I'm here to do a statement. That's it. Just to talk to you. And you just know that you come in and do your station. Promise. My word. You bring back your night, and you're going to bed now. And I'm leaving tomorrow afternoon. I just had to do my job. How do you feel about that?
You'll be okay.
Yeah.
Do you have shoes? Hey, look at your shoes. Look at your shoes right here.
Just
Yeah, no shoes.
Do you have shoes for her?
Oh, yeah. I guess you're a relative.
Do you have shoes for her? Shoes? Yeah, go put your shoes on. You'll be okay.
You're stuck in the station talking to me.
We're just going to talk to you. We're going to bring you right back. You're not under arrest.
Don't you feel like you have to kind of explain? Like it's not something new. I do know a lot about what happened. I had people that had me going to the house the other night. And that's one you have it now. Okay? And we need an explanation of what happened. You need your side of the story because we have other sides of the story. Do you understand? And this is your opportunity to give your side of the story, an explanation of what happened. You don't want to come off as somebody who's a callous, cold-hearted individual. You're not known that. You're known to be a sweet, intelligent woman. So this is your opportunity right now. I came all the way from Florida to give you this opportunity. How do you want to talk here? You can talk here. Can we get some rights? Or what do you say here? As long as you just don't interject. Are you cool with that?
I'm allowed to be provided with a lawyer.
You could have retained an attorney. You could, all this time, you could have retained an attorney. Of course you could.
But it's still,
Why would you need an attorney? Don't you need to explain what happened?
I would like to speak to him because
Okay.
to figure things out. I don't know.
What have you been doing all this time, especially when you drove all the way up there?
I've been trying to sleep sleep and get some rest. I haven't eaten in 3 days, actually.
You know the status of James, right?
I just checked the news. I didn't know.
Okay.
Until now.
All right. Well, what you leave really basically impressing on me is, did you go over there with the intent to kill him, or was it an accident? That's basically why I'm here. This is your opportunity. Because right now it's coming out that you, basically everything shows that you just drove over there with the intention of killing James, which is really bad. But if there's something like heat in the moment, passion, you were trying to defend yourself, this is your opportunity, because you're not now getting another opportunity. Most likely. Attorney, you know what an attorney will tell you to do? Well, he won't let you express yourself. But this is your opportunity right now. The evidence is going to speak for itself, and then you won't have the opportunity to speak for yourself. Did you go over there? Just answer some quick. Did you go over there with the intention of hurting James? Okay, so it just happened. I'm assuming, is that right? You didn't do it on purpose. You didn't go over there armed with that knife, because I know that knife was there when you got there. You didn't take it with you. Right? You love James. I know you do. I know you love James. And he loved you. He was just trying to expect you to do something wrong. No, I didn't. What did you say?
He said for months that he didn't actually love me and that
That hurts. I bet it hurts. Listen, I'm a little older than you can imagine. I've been through some heartbreak myself. I'm sure my kids too. Alright? So I've gotten pretty emotional, and I understand. It hurts. Especially when someone says they led you on, or they didn't. And you know what, maybe it's just that's poor wording. I'm sure he wouldn't have been with you this long if he didn't really love you. I'm sure he did love you at some point.
he did at some point.
I'm sure he did. But you're both young. You learn, you live.
So maybe
Yeah, sit down. I want you to come with that. You want to sit at the table? You want to sit at the table? You want to sit at the table? Is it okay to call you now, or you like call me? So, just, he told you this when you got to your house, or just people on the table?
he told me before, and not sure if I wanted to speak in person.
Okay.
So I wanted to speak with him.
You were there in front of my father for a while, and doesn't? What do you say? Then, whatever you said hurt you, right? Do you love him? You still love him, don't you? Answer a simple question. What happened when you got there?
It's not really nothing. It was just,
What do you think? Okay. We know the injuries that he suffered. Okay? And they had to the effect that he was you weren't chasing him, were you?
he ran off.
Okay.
I didn't chase him because there was sheep on him.
Did you surprise yourself at that point?
I'm not like that.
I'm looking at you right now.
I've never been violent. I've never done anything
Okay.
violent before.
What put you over the edge? Just because he broke your heart, I'm guessing.
I felt like I was going to stop. And it wasn't the only time that he's done something that has broken it before. I never thought of anything like that. But there were a couple things that just set me off.
When you used the knife on him, was your intention just to kind of scare him? Or you didn't want to kill him? Just tell me that you didn't want to kill him. At least tell us that you didn't want to. It's good to hear. Because some people say, I've been able to tell me, I've meant to kill that person.
No, I didn't mean to. When I went off, I thought he would be okay. But I realized
confirm, you didn't bring the knife with you, did you?
No, that wasn't mine. No.
Where did you see it?
That was in the kitchen.
Was it in the drawer? Okay. You'd seen it before, I'm guessing. Because you lived in that house, didn't you? Okay. You spent a lot of nights there. Okay. And did anyone go with you? No. You were just trying to talk to James yourself. Because I'll be honest, I saw your little chat on the gaming site that you guys did. And I could tell by the tone that you weren't happy. You didn't hold this over this chat. So I can understand you were kind of emotional. How did he know? Did he even know that you were coming over? I was trying to figure that out. Were you able to communicate to him somehow that you were coming over? You just, I know you spend the night in private with him anytime you wanted.
Yeah, he told me I could always come over whenever I wanted to.
Okay. So when you got there, was he in his bedroom, in the kitchen, where was he?
He was in his bedroom playing, and then he came over by the door.
Back or front?
The front.
How long were you guys talking before you got blind? Did you only stab him once?
At that time, I was kind of front-playing.
Did you hurt yourself? Some people, did you not hand hurt? Do you mind if I see? Are you right-handed or left-handed? Did you cut yourself?
No, my arms were sore and I don't know.
Let me see. Do you mind just going like this? Thank you. Yeah, most people with a knife, if they backwards and regularly, sometimes cut themselves. That's why I just wanted to know. What did happen after you struck him? What did you do?
Must have bumped myself. I didn't think I hit on the wall actually, and then the last one we let go, and it didn't seem like much though. I don't know, I couldn't see it start.
What happened with the knife after?
Just threw it away and ran out the door because it started blowing. I was scared, and I fled out the door.
What did you do after that? Did you go home to your parents?
I wanted to tell them that I must talk to them.
Did you make it there?
I did, but they were in the bathroom.
They were in the shower, weren't they? You just missed him. Your dad came out of the shower and said he saw you. Did he tell you? He saw you leaving just after you were knocking on the door.
He didn't tell me, but my uncle came over to talk to me and he told me.
What would have happened if he opened the door? Would you have told him?
I wanted to tell them. I was panicked.
They were pretty worried about you. I mean, you're an adult and everything, but I was worried about it. I was afraid maybe you might do something to yourself. You're no one that you don't feel like hurting yourself, do you?
I've had depression for a very long time.
But since this incident, have you contemplated suicide? Are you thinking of hurting yourself? I just want to make sure you're not going to.
It's hard to know.
Are you going to be lucky with a 900? Mom? Is it mom? Yeah.
Yeah, he's been keeping very close on it. He's very supportive of me, saying, Tucker was saying that I should kill myself and stuff.
What do you think? Do you think it's the right thing to do what you did?
I believe so.
Is there anything else about what happened in that kitchen that you think I need to know, that we need to know?
That's pretty much the main thing.
So you admit that you went over there, you got upset, and you stabbed James. Is that correct? Okay. You swear to your children the truth? Okay. Now, regarding the vehicle, when you left, you went to your parents' house.
Yes.
It took you a while to get to the turnpike. Like 15 minutes. What did you do?
I went over to Walmart.
Okay.
I just needed a dog because I brought my mom for the day.
I was wondering how you were talking to people, how you found your way up here when the phone was not that can't go anywhere without my phone.
Yeah, actually the first maybe quarter, I just needed it without all of that because it wasn't even active.
You got nothing kissing me, didn't you?
Yes. I never even activated with that actually.
Oh, okay.
And
How'd you find your way up here? Have you ever driven up here before? It's pretty good because I got confused just coming from the airport. Good thing I have a GPS. It's very confusing. Yeah, I just had a good thing on the GPS. The car, did you do anything? You know that we took it.
yes.
Did you do anything to clean it?
I cleaned out like whatever was in there, like my clothes, but that's pretty much it.
Was there, do you believe there's any blood? Did you have enough blood on your hands?
It was was just on the top here, and maybe it tripped over on the side.
Do you remember what you were wearing?
Yes, I actually still have it down. It was just a little bit on my sleeve.
What were you wearing? This?
It was a long sleeve shirt.
You still have it?
Yes.
Is it in the car or here?
No, it's here.
Which kind is it? Is it monk? Am I pronouncing that?
Yeah, it's not that's the Eam version.
Can you tell me where it is?
I didn't put it down.
What do you mean down there?
This is the basement.
Basement here? Oh, okay. What kind of, we'll describe it for me. You being really forthright is very, very appreciative, and it's good.
Thank you. I can just put on if you want.
All right. Okay.
It's on the...
Okay. Have you been to this house before? You came up here this time?
Yes, I actually was born here.
Yeah. And then you guys spent the whole time kissing your dad, so but you can't use him. You remember that? I'm really concerned about that. And I won't. Okay. You guys promise me when you see the shirt, why don't you must have some questions for me? Like what's your situation like? What you ask me? I mean, I would say no, but is that honest with me? I'll be honest with you.
Well, I guess one question.
Sure.
What would happen to me?
Potentially. Well, you explained you didn't go with the intent to harm James. Is that true?
That's true.
Okay. Would you say this was, explain to me, was this, why did this happen? You kind of explained earlier, but that goes to the state of mind, and that's what people look at, especially judges, that's what they look at. You could potentially see some jail time.
Right.
I mean, you did, unfortunately, I don't want to make it hard on James, but James is no longer with us. Okay? And even when people make a mistake like that, maybe when you drive a car and you hurt somebody, you don't intentionally do it, you still have to, unfortunately, suffer the consequences. But you're young, which means, and as long as you keep being honest and you tell them, this may never go to trial. The court, I'm not saying I have any good, but the prosecutor may take a plea. You know what the plea bargain is? Would they offer you less time? But it's something the state determines. I don't. But they do look at everything. They look at the total totality of whatever, the relationship with James, the fact that you later on, this was just literally an isolated incident. They don't look at that. They're going to look at how you were honest and you're trying to explain the situation. Okay? And these are things that they definitely consider. Okay? Not only, but I'm not arresting you. You understand that? I'm leaving from that. I just wanted to come talk to you, give you a fair chance so that people don't look at you and go, she's not, evil. I don't get that impression. I don't think Mike does either. But let's get the shirt. Anything else? Where did they go? Where is it? Downstairs? I haven't been in the basement in years. I live in Florida.
I guess it's like the walls and stuff, right?
Yeah, I know. I can't. I'm just going to think of you. I haven't been in the basement in a long time. It's nice up here. Really up here, or is this where you're saying? Oh, is it? It's in here? The shirt?
Yes.
Okay. The positive? Is that the shirt?
Yes.
Okay. Is that it? Did you wash it?
No, I didn't wash
Okay.
it.
Please leave it at that. It's fine.
It's just a little bit.
Okay. Thank you very much. Did you purposely leave yourself on there? Or was that my accident?
I just panicked and I guess you could say they, I don't know, I guess both really, just like, I was scared of just jolting out the front door.
And the reason that, what is it, in 2 days, you took it down there and I lost it. The reason you didn't like turn yourself around.
I'm sorry, I have to say.
So that's okay, it's fine. Just explain to me. People are going to wonder, why did she flee Florida? Why did you?
I was just really scared. I get some advice. I'm giving you too much. Ferguson.
Okay.
Well, I don't know, like, what do you know, like, where it got him, or, like...
No, is it just like where you made a motion with a knife for them?
I don't really remember, but it didn't last too long because he ran away.
I'm just confirming you got the knife out of the drawer.
Yeah.
How long did you have the knife before you think you, or was it just like that, you grabbed the knife and went and started?
In this instant.
I see. And do you regret it?
Of course I do.
I have to ask, it's, you know, he's my witness saying. I read a report that considered that I heard you say that, because you may, you know, it's good to hear that.
I do.
Okay. Oh, so now you said the reason you left Florida because you wanted advice. Did someone advise you to come up this way?
No.
Okay, you should have that on your own?
Yes.
Okay. Mike, can you think of anything I can come? Let me try and I'm going to give you my... Okay, I think I have a card. It's not... Mark has my phone.
I'll give you my card, you know, so you guys know how to get back, you know, to get the car back. Car, I mean, I'm going to get my last card.
I did do that in college. Your parents are green houses. As you see, we're not all yours. Listen, we understand. You made a mistake. Okay? You get through it.
You're young, it's, you know,
It's not the end of your life, that's for sure. What will eventually happen, though, I want you to understand this, listen to me, right? When I get back to Florida, a warrant will be issued for your arrest. I'll give you the opportunity, because you've been cooperative, to continue yourself into your abilities here. Okay? So that people won't come crashing on the other kind of stuff.
so you have my card.
Okay?
You can call me,
I'll let you know.
and we'll make arrangements. Okay.
I'll call Mom, because you got me my contact. Okay?
In that case, I mean, she wants to go down.
It's probably better to turn herself.
It's probably easier to have her turn herself in to us. And
For some reason.
yeah, it'll be a mess. And so basically, it's not that big of a deal. And then in a couple days, they'll just fly her down. So it's not that big of a deal. And we'll make it low key. You know, it won't be a big deal at all. And then that's my card. So the car that was towed from here yesterday, you can use me as a point of contact to get it back.
Okay, yeah, because this, you know, using that, I don't know.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah, it's good, yeah. I was just trying to get some information for him, so he would know what to expect or what to do.
And I told you when I got here, I talked to you about it, so basically we have to process it, it's just part of our job. And then when we're done with it, we're going to release it. And we're not going to charge anybody. Okay? And then you'll be the point of contact. So you live up here. So when the car's able to be released, I'll call you.
So if you email me Monday or Tuesday, we'll make arrangements to get it back to you. We're not going to charge you storage.
You'd rather, one positive thing about this little interaction that you're having with me right now is that I'm not talking to you. You don't have to worry about us chasing after you. You don't have to be looking over your shoulder when the policeman be stopping me. You know, you could go on with life for maybe a couple more weeks and maybe a month.
I know.
Yeah, you don't need that stress. Okay? And this is a process, it'll take a little while too, so, yeah, that's about it. I respect you for talking, okay? Because I do get a lot of people that just, they don't talk to us. Did you feel like uncomfortable talking to me?
No, actually, it's very comfortable.
Okay.
A lot more comfortable than I expected.
Yeah, you know, we try not to disrespect, we try to make it as comfortable as possible, and
We don't judge, we're not here, I mean, we're just, you know, we're paid by the city, I'm paid by the citizens of Florida to just do my I'll give you 5 minutes, I'll get it to you.
Okay, that's fine.
I'll give my phone.
So the easiest way to reach me about the car is going to be email. Don't bother with that number. Yeah, right there on the bottom, on the front.